Overflow Beyond the Music is a podcast hosted by musician and pastor Josh McCabe and takes a deep dive into the life of artists into topics of faith, family, and seasons of struggle. This podcast is presented by Overflow Ministries Group. For more information about Overflow Ministries Group, visit overflowgroup.org. And for more information about our host, his music project Caves, and much more, visit overflowbtm.com. Now here's our host, Josh McCabe, with today's episode.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Overflow Beyond the Music. I am your host, Josh McCabe. It's good to be back with you. I hope wherever you're at, you're doing well. I hope you are enjoying life to the fullness of which we're able to enjoy it too right now. And times are weird, but we're slugging it out, just like we're slugging out another episode right here, and super excited about our guest today, Phil Joel. You'll know him from the Newsboys, from his own solo project, and also his band Zealand. So you will definitely love our conversation that we had. One of the best interviews I've had to date, and I have so much respect for this guy. Just so kind, used my name in conversation, which is a huge thing because I can't remember the names of... I'm bad with names, and the fact that he would constantly just remember and use my name, and it was like we were sitting down having coffee, so I was really appreciative of that. And he took the time and to have this interview, and he was in New Zealand at the time. We talk a little bit about that as we start, and you'll really enjoy that. But just before we get into that, a couple really important things. Social media is where you can find clips of our episodes, stuff you can share. So make sure you follow us at Overflow BTM on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. That's Overflow BTM. Make sure you click that follow button. Make sure you give it a like, a share whenever you see stuff posted. We really appreciate that. Also, you can follow me online. My Instagram handle is at Josh McCaves. So that's at Josh MCCAVES, Josh McCaves, I think. I don't know. But search Josh McCaves and you'll find me. And would love to follow you. Love to keep the conversation going and just and get to know some of our listeners a little bit. That obviously means a huge amount to connect with you guys personally. So please do that. Also, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcast, make sure you click that subscribe button so that you can be updated to when we have new episodes. Well, that's enough from me. Let's get into our conversation with Phil Joel of the Newsboys, Zealand Worship, and his latest solo project called Better Than I Found It. And leading us into the podcast is a clip from that song, Better Than I Found It. Here we are, Josh McCabe, your host on Overflow Beyond the Music.
So I am in downtown Auckland, New Zealand right now, in a hotel room. And now we've got a nice little corner situation. So out this window, see if we can see that there? That's called the Sky Tower. So people will bungee jump off that. So periodically I hear screaming. Ah! And down they go.
Perfect. Like amazing.
That. And then out this window we have, that's me. We have the Auckland City Harbour.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And we have the America's Cup is going on right now. And so we have the yachts, all the sailboats, super speedy, super high-tech sailboats planted down there. And there is an American flag, a British flag, no Canadian flags. Josh.
No, I know. And we're part of we're Commonwealth, like brothers and sisters, I think. So, I don't know.
That we are. Well, your boats aren't fast enough. That's
story. Probably the biggest issue there. But hey, well, at least you're in New Zealand where you can do things.
Well, not for another couple of days. We are quarantining for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. So you get off the plane and that's what happens. And maybe we can talk about that in your podcast. Maybe this is the podcast. Are we podcasting?
I think we're in. I think we already have started. I always try and think of like a clever way to do an introduction, but I feel like this is a man that needs no introduction. And I say that in like the most humbling of senses, because as I was reading today and just kind of going over your career, I'm like, oh my goodness, I had no. Time flies. You forget how quickly time flies.
Right, no doubt.
So
yeah,
I got to tell you this. You look exactly the same right now as you did probably. I know. Probably 15 years ago.
It must be good. It must be good lighting in this room.
Yeah, something like that.
That must be it.
Well, I mean, you look about exactly the same as you did about 15, 18 years ago, maybe, when I saw you at Queensway Cathedral on the Thrive tour.
Yeah, I remember that. You were there, huh? That was Queensway Cathedral is always a good show. It's just something about that venue. Just like, it was close. It was like a big club.
Yeah, totally. And it's right downtown. And then the other one that I've seen you guys at, again, growing up and years past, was Canada's Wonderland.
Okay, yeah. Was that outdoors?
Yeah, the big, like the theme park amphitheater, kind of just north of the city of Toronto.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of years, and it's great to catch up with you and connect.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it has. It has been a while, and I don't know. Maybe because last year was such a mind warp and a time warp, but time has just become such a weird thing. But I've become more aware of it lately, and maybe like you, realizing, wow, that was, Queensway Cathedral. That was like 15, 18 years ago or something. I don't know, but I'm realizing I've been doing this for a while. It's it's kind of just dawning on me, especially because flying here from the US, and we jump in this little bus and get whisked off to quarantine, and the reason for the trip is I'm playing at a festival here, and and I've been given this wonderful place of honor. I'm headlining the Sunday night, which is the closing night, so that's very nice.
Wow.
But in preparing for it, I'm going through the set list and trying to coming up with what I want to play. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, we could play we play Entertaining Angels, and then we can do let's do He Reigns as well while we're doing that, and let's do God Is Watching Over You from way back then, and let's do I'm just pulling all of this stuff from all of these different things I've been involved with in different time periods, and it just kind of dawned on me. I'm like, wow, I've been doing this for a while, and I've got I've got a body of work to pull from. It's been pretty cool.
Well, I think what's cool, especially as I got a chance to just listen to some of the tracks off your record, but I was what I love about that what you just said is that you just put out a new solo record that just came out today, I believe. Yes. Is that correct?
Yeah. Super excited. Mm-hmm.
And so when people are listening to this, it'll already be out. You'll already be able to get it. But what I think's awesome is that you're releasing new music, because I think the temptation can be, you said Entertaining Angels, God's Watching Over You, He Reigns, go way back to the other songs. It can be really tempting to stay in a season that felt like it was more fruitful, or in hindsight felt more comfortable than trying new seasons.
Yeah, I don't know if it's ignorance or what is it, or what it is, but I've never really been able to sort of stay in the one place, even if it has sort of attained a certain level of success. I just want to keep moving and keep creating different things. Even if it was, even 10 years ago, I decided I'm going to make kids music. I'm going to make 2 kids records for my kids, who were pretty young at the time, and I thought I'll just do that. And people would say, back then, they'd say, no, that's going to end your career, I'm like, oh, career? Oh, do I have a career? I guess I do. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't, I've never really thought career-minded sort of thinking, it's really just, what's the next project? What are we going to create? What are we going to make? And it's been fun. But lately, I have been able to sort of take stock of it and go, wow, yeah, I've been doing this for a while. And I'm looking forward to moving into the future as a solo artist. And creating more solo projects. So this is the first in a while, and it'll be the first of, let's hope, many. Yeah.
Well, it's tempting, this podcast, because normally where I go, like, I've joked with managers and PR people. I go, if someone wants to come and really just promote their thing, they're going to be really disappointed, because we'll end up having such a great conversation about everything else that naturally we're like, oh, so that's where that's why this is happening right now, and it just naturally goes there. And it's tempting for me to want to go all the way back to 1994 and the beginning of things.
Come on.
But I kind of want to go into more 2008, and because you had stepped back from the Newsboys, and 2008 you stepped back from the band, and what was sort of going through your mind in 2008? Was there an "oh crap, what have I done" moment, or was there a healthy anticipation of what God was going to do?
Oh, no, I was excited, and it was really the end of 2006. I basically said to the guys, "Hey, it's time to move on." And so it was 2007 when I was officially on my own. But I had a young family at the time, and I was really concerned about that. How do I say it? I remember there was a moment when I came home from being on the road, and my little guy, he was like 3.5. And usually he'd come running to me, "Dad, you're home, And this one day, I came in the door, and I was expecting him to just try and, grab a hold and knock me over with a hug, but he didn't. And he just sort of looked over his shoulder, and he's like, "Hey, Dad,"
Yeah.
And I just started noticing that he was just expecting me to be gone.
Wow.
And he was slowly detaching, because he's a time kid. He likes time, and it's one of his sort of love languages, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I realized, wow, if I just keep doing this, if I just keep coming home for a couple of days and then leaving for 3 or 4 or what have you, this is not going to go well. I'm going to sort of lose the allegiance of his heart, if you will, And so, and my daughter as well, I just thought, I need to be home more. I need to take control of my schedule as well. When you're in a band like that, it's so fun. It's so fun, Josh. You're doing all this cool stuff, and you're hanging with these great guys and just doing, living the dream, really. But you don't have much control of your life.
Right.
Because the tour is booked, PR work is booked, interviews are booked, videos, photo shoots in the studio, it's all booked out, and you are a part of the machine. And for a while, when you're a young man, you're really happy to be a part of this successful, wonderful machine. But then after a while, you grow up and you go, hang on, maybe it's time for me to step aside, do something different, see what happens, take a risk. And it wasn't a risk to be ambitious, to go, I'm going to take on the world and become a solo artist. I'd already made solo projects.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a little more hands-on ministry type stuff too at that point. Get my hands dirty a little bit, and so I got involved with a lot of youth conferences, teen stuff, and that gave birth later on to Zealand, the band Zealand Worship. Yeah.
Well, you probably don't remember this because you've done so many events over the years, but we had met just briefly, like in 2008 or something like that, in a runner van after doing an Acquire the Fire event together. I was playing with a band called Esther Lynn at the time. You were there with Zealand and leading worship. But I remember your demeanor was just chill. You were just happy to be there and serve, and happy to go home. But maybe speak to that sort of peace that you were just experiencing after really just leaving everything that you had known behind to step out into some new territory.
Yeah, Jesus talked about that to some degree when he was, he was ministering to that woman at the well type, that whole story, and and the disciples weren't there, and they turned up and they're like, Jesus, can we, aren't you hungry, basically? And he said, no, I'm good. I got to get the wording right, but basically, he was really satisfied because he just had this really cool encounter with this lady and been able to lead her into a new place and of understanding and whatnot, and it satisfied him. He was like, yeah, food would be cool, but no, I'm good. And so I think you're right. I think when you feel like you're in the right place doing the right stuff, it's easy. Not to say there aren't struggles, man. I mean, I don't have some kind of easy street life. I mean, there's definitely work to be done, and but I don't know how to word that. I think I'm really grateful. I don't know if I'm naturally a grateful person, but I try to stay as grateful as I can, because there's so much to be thankful for, really, Josh. The big stuff or the small stuff.
Yeah, and everything we're experiencing right now, I think there's a lot to be grateful for. You know, a pandemic has not stopped our ability to create, and it's definitely not silenced God's willingness to speak through music to us.
Yeah. No, I think he wants us to clear the clutter so that we can hear things a little better. And there's been a lot of clutter, you know. And last year for me, oh my goodness, that was just, I mean, it was brutal. You know, people think, oh, you know, even some of my neighbors are like, oh, Phil, he must be set. You know, he wrote some of those songs back in the day. He's probably just like, cha-ching, you know, just sitting back. You know, the checks are rolling in. That's not the case. It's not how it works. You know, remember, Christian music is it's a limited, sort of a small genre. And you know, so last year I basically lost my job. You know, March 12th, we got sent home. And, you know, until further notice, boys, you know, we'll be in touch. And the notice never really came. So for me, it was a little freaky. But my wife, you know, I don't know, sometimes I borrow her faith, you know, I think, you know. Mm-hmm. She says, get out there, get out to the studio and work on these songs that that you wrote last year and record them. And she knew that me being out in the studio without help could be tricky, because I don't know how to use all the buttons and all of the equipment. And but she was like, no, I believe in you. I believe that you can do this. Get out there and record these songs because they're important. And so I did, and it was really interesting. You know, I definitely felt I was clearing the clutter, and it was a purification process, getting back to the simplicity of what it is I do, writing songs and recording them. And but I think that's for a lot of people. I hope even. Maybe 2020 for a lot of people actually caused a lot more clutter. Yeah. And maybe moving forward, I feel like people are starting to learn, okay, I've got to clear aside some things. I need to put everything out on the table in my life, and I need to sort of start deciding what it is I'm going to be putting my hand to, my attention to, spend my time on and my money on, what have you, because I'm breathing shallow, you know. And so and I think some of this music will hopefully soundtrack some of that. I'm not trying to be a salesman on this project, but
we went there naturally. Yeah,
it feels weird to me, honestly, Josh. I'm like, wow, I wrote these songs 2019, 2020 recorded them, and I really labored to try and get it worked out and work and record them, and I got them to a place where I was really pleased, and they're coming out now. They just came out, and this record, and I feel like these songs are just kind of they're right on time.
Well, I think when you have these adversities that I think we're all facing, you losing essentially your job of touring, and we can respond in different ways, and maturity and time has taught us that we've learned from mistakes we've made in the past, and now when pandemic hit, I learned from the past of busyness to go, maybe I should really take some time and do some soul work in this time, But that is, again, from years of doing things the wrong way. When you look back at your journey now, where's a point? What's a decision? What's a moment in which you go, I wish I had the wisdom I have now to do that thing differently?
I know there was a moment there when it's easy to take the shortcut, it's easy to take the shortcut, and I just feel like God's a God of risk. He loves risk, and not reckless risk, but just, man, when He's calling us to do stuff, we should just do it. We should just do it and let Him figure out how to take care of some of the peripheral stuff. But if He's calling you to do things, and at different points I've been too slow. I've been slow to respond to His call or His sort of little nudge, to go, come on, let's go do this. And and I'll be like, I don't know, I don't know if that's cool. I don't know if that's safe. I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if it'll be successful. And then, you have to sit back and go, what is cool? What is safe and what is successful in God's kingdom understanding, and not worldly thinking, and it's a whole different when we're thinking about it's a whole different dynamic when you're talking about walking by faith and not by sight, and I realize now, looking back, I've been led into different spots to sort of take risks and really walk by faith, and be challenged to just not look down, just keep going. And even last year, tough year, really. It was a challenging year, but I read again this morning, twice in the same passage, Jesus feeds the 5,000, then 4,000, and it's like Matthew has to tell the story twice for the reader to get the understanding. Oh, God takes care of us. He will take care of us if we're faithful, if we walk by faith, not by sight. And so, but that muscle gets, I think, worked out too. You get stronger in this, in understanding. It's not a blasé thing. It's not like, sit back, smoke a cigarette, God's going to take care of it. It's like, man, God knows what He's doing. We've given our lives to Him. I've got to stop trying to take it back at different points and trying to take control, because He knows how to provide for His kids, because He's been doing it for a long time. I don't know if that answered your question or not. I probably took a little detour, but...
Oh, yeah, it's great. I mean, it's like the difference between sitting back and just going, don't worry, God's got it, I can just relax, versus having an active anticipation for what God is going to do for you when you are going, and I actually think that too often we have this false humility of going, no, I'm just going to let God do the work. But really, I think what we ought to do is have a aggressive anticipation of where God wants us and what wave we can ride.
Yes, and I think in that a lot of you talk about an aggressive anticipation. Part of that aggression, if you want to call it that, or that fervor to hear from the Lord and to move in His will and His ways, and to allow Him to sort of open up different channels of provision. In doing that and being in that place, often requires us taking very serious stock of where we are, what we're doing, the things that we're involving ourselves in. And generally, I would say to people, hey, why don't you just start with some of the things and the voices that you're allowing in. Start by taking a look at those and decide whether or not they're helpful or whether or not they're causing you to breathe shallow. And i.e., let's take a look at your social media intake. How many voices are you allowing? How much clutter is out there? How much just white noise is jamming up the flow of God, and is hindering you walking and experiencing that peace that's supposed to surpass understanding. So get back to the simplicity of going, all right, what have I got? What am I doing? What am I spending my time on? What voices am I listening to? How do I clear the clutter? And what do I need to get back to? The simplicity of hearing from God, because that's the voice you need to hear from. But that takes a little bit of doing, soul work, as you said, but we have to be kind of deliberate about it. We've got to just actually go, I'm doing it. I'm doing it this time. I'm going to actually switch everything off. I'm going to take a day and actually ask the Lord to help me take stock of where I am. It's like the Genesis 3:9 stuff where God's walking through the garden and says, Adam, where are you? He knows where he is. He knows where Adam is, but Adam needs to just step out and stop making excuses and say, here I am. But he doesn't. He didn't. He just he blamed everyone else. It's this, it's that, and even now we're busy. It's very easy to blame the political situations that are going on, the COVID situations, the demonstrations, the this, the that, the unemployment, the blah blah blah. This is what's challenging my peace. When God's saying, "Hey, I can be your peace in this." Stop making excuses. Stop looking everywhere else. I will be your peace, and I will allow, and it will surpass understanding. But it does take us actually entering into that, like cooperating with Him.
Yeah, and just listening for His voice. I think we have a lot. I think as Christians, there's a lot of times that we can respond because we're just not asking the Lord what His heart is for a situation. We know what our reaction is, but it's not always His heart. And I think that
so good.
I think that as I look at from a glance, look at the industry, this Christian music industry that you've been a part of for many years. There's a lot of voices and a lot of people saying to focus on this and do this. And who are some voices, though, like outside of negative ones, but who are the positive voices in the industry that have called you to a deeper understanding of God and a deeper understanding of ministry and family?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that one because I feel like I'm stepping away from the industry.
Yeah.
I feel like even with this project, I don't mention God. I think actually there's a JFK quote on the last song, and he mentions God, he mentions Scripture, but other than that, I didn't want this record to be a CCM record.
Yeah,
I wanted it to be a my kids, their faith is forming. You know,
right.
My daughter's 20, my son's 16. Their faith is forming, and some of these voices, especially in CCM, to them, those voices aren't speaking to where they are in their faith journey, and it's ringing a little untrue, and it's ringing a little bit dishonest, and so they're backing away from that type of music. They're listening to other music in other places. Not to say that's not necessarily a good thing. I don't know. It is what it is. And I believe that this next generation coming through, they're just wanting authenticity. They're wanting voices of hope and of compassion and empathy and concern. And they're concerned about issues like the climate, like global warming. They're concerned with issues of racial unity, all kinds of things that for some reason we in the church have not been on the forefront of racing to throw our arms around some of these issues and say, how can we help? How can we serve? Because it's not about us.
Yeah.
It's about you. It's about the next generation coming through. And so this new project is listed as under alternative on iTunes and Spotify and all that sort of stuff. Because I'd like to sort of reach out beyond our CCM walls a little bit. And I'm not trying to, I don't know if I can speak to what's going on in CCM type world, and I know maybe many of the listeners sort of love it and have derived a lot of hope and it's soundtracked a lot of cool stuff in their lives. But I feel that the Lord's kind of just rattling that machine a little bit, giving it a bit of a shake through this 2020 period and into 2021, because we're still not out of the woods yet, in regard to touring and all that sort of stuff. Everyone's, this COVID thing, it's not playing by the rules.
Yeah.
The calendar changed, but it didn't. So I don't know.
Well, I think you're speaking right to where my heart's at too. And the reason I started this podcast is because I'm a pastor first, and I care more about someone's journey than I care about their newest K-Love single. Yeah. No offense, K-Love, and no offense to people who have singles on there. But
right, love the work they do.
Yeah, exactly. And I find it very encouraging. Other times there's something else that I'm looking for. But when I think about the machine of CCM or Christian music or whatever we call it, and I think about a band that really could be defined as part of that machine, like a thing that just keeps on going, just keeps on chugging and keeps finding new ways to keep going. I do think of the Newsboys, and in some ways maybe I almost think of the Newsboys as like the poster child for CCM and the CCM industry. So how do you put where your heart's at with the mission of Newsboys and how do you prevent yourself from being caught back up in the, quote unquote CCM machine?
Oh, it's a great question. And I'm like debating. I'm sitting here going, ooh, should I answer this one honestly? Of course I'll answer it honestly, Josh. But it can be. It can be. And, here's the deal, man. I got a kid in college. I got another one on the way to college. And, hey, I got bills. I got concerns. And the Newsboys United thing has been great. We've been touring consistently, and it's been paying my bills and keeping...
And encouraging people.
Encouraging people. It's been doing a good work, honestly. I was very excited to be involved in it because I think it sort of re-inspired a number of people, and maybe in your sort of age stage demographic, to have a little moment of nostalgia that would sort of look back and feel good and then spur them on, into the future. And help them remember, no, that was real. That was real. God moved, and I felt, new things and whatnot. So it was a good work. But there was definitely the temptation to get stuck there a little bit. I don't know if that's the right word. It's not stuck, but like to rest in it. To rest in it and go, oh, okay, this is. And I think 2020 happening was a good thing for me. It shook my shoulders a little bit. It's like, no, keep creating, keep making music, keep writing, keep creating, keep moving forward. And I'm still moving forward with Newsboys United. we've got touring, we've got dates on the calendar, and I'll still be doing those if Lord willing, fingers crossed. But I think it's been an interesting time period for me to kind of just be challenged to not get stale, to not get just comfortable, and it can be easy to get comfortable when you're in a situation that is working,
Well, I think that's interesting. I think it's we can both speak to it from music and the church. I think the church has taken for granted for years that people just keep showing up every Sunday, and sometimes they're not even sure why they're showing up. They're just it's what you do.
Yeah.
And I think, in the Christian music industry, the Newsboys come to town or Winter Jam comes to town. You just go. That's just what you do. You go every year.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this pause is going to allow people facilitating those environments to go, why are we doing this? And how do we really reevaluate what we define as success, failure, financial wins, spiritual wins? Like, it's all good introspective things, and I have no opinion of it other than to say they're good questions to ask.
They are good questions to ask, aren't they? Because the big question is, are we busy creating and padding out our own like little subculture here, or are we wanting to look outside and embrace the culture, and reach the culture with good news, with hope, with this peace we're talking about that surpasses all understanding, not anger, not fists, open hands. So what does that look like? We all want to feel safe. We want to feel comfortable. But maybe it's challenging us a little bit in those places of perceived safety and comfort. What are they serving us, or is it about serving others? So, interesting time to be alive.
We talked a little bit about your kids and some of the questions they're asking about the environment, on racial issues, and some of the things that we're facing in society today. And whether it be those things or sexuality or mental health issues or what have you, I think that there are a lot of people willing to speak into the lives of people within the church if the church is not going to speak about it.
Yeah, and there are a lot of... Gosh, people's stories are so complex, aren't they? And and they've been through so much, and all we see is what we see. We see face value, we see what have you, and we decide that we've got everything figured out, and we put them in a box. And oftentimes that box is outside of our church walls. We're going to say, hey, I don't know what your story is. I don't know where you come from. I don't know what you're going through. I don't even know how you identify yourself and what you're involved in or what have you. I just, look, I don't even care about your politics. All I know is I love you. I love you, and I want to embrace you and help you in this as you walk this planet out, walk this life out on this planet. How can I help? That's honestly, I think, I don't need to, and you want to open up, you want to tell me your story, you want to, great, but let's, first and foremost, I just want you to know that I love you. And I would just love for believers to be seen and heard as that. That would be the loudest voice. We don't know who you are, what you do, where you come from. We don't have to understand every facet of your life. We're not here to judge. We're here to embrace you and love you well. Gosh, wouldn't that be nice?
Well, I think, it's interesting too, because I think believers get afraid of either it's like they're afraid to show that side because they're worried that other believers will say that you're not standing for truth. And and I think it creates this mean cycle that isn't so interesting, how you're more scared of people that you're in family with than you are about seeing other people never getting to know the person of Jesus. Right.
And we're not here, we're not meant to be the Holy Spirit. We've got this quite simple little task, and again, make it so complicated. We really do overcomplicate things and jump to conclusions, and we become afraid. You're so right. Man, if I embrace this person, if I love on this person, if I have this person over for dinner, if I associate with them, what am I, what are they going to think? Oh my goodness. I mean, Jesus did that the whole time, and that's exactly what happened. The Pharisees were like, oh, do you see who he's eating with? He's eating with Matthew, dirty Matthew, and then all these other Matthew's tax collector friends, and these, it's wild. The example he led for us, invited them in, loved on them, and obviously wanted them to experience, new levels of truth. But first and foremost, I think he let them they felt safe, didn't they? They felt safe and they felt seen. And there must have been something about Jesus, man, when he was walking around, thousands of people flocking to him, not just to see a miracle, not just to see something fancy happen, but they must have felt something different. What do they feel?
Yeah.
I wish, man, they must have felt, I just believe they felt valuable, felt seen, felt understood somehow. Yeah.
Was there, ever a thought in your mind that as you come out with this record, was there ever a thought in your mind that going, okay, if I step out of the CCM world, what if they reject me? What if they don't support me now because I've decided to try and go quote unquote secular? Like, fear of being misunderstood. Was there a fear of being misunderstood for your motive?
Yeah. There still is a little bit of a concern. But I don't know. I'm kind of over it. I really am. Because I don't know what it is. My kids have a big influence on me, in some ways, because their hearts and their peers, they're so important, and they want to know that people of faith can care about people of other faiths. They want to know that people of our faith can love people who are different, who even oppose their views. They also want to know that people of faith, our faith in particular, can embrace environmental issues and become better stewards of the planet. And they are sick and tired of people in the church politicizing all of these issues and ostracizing and pushing people aside as opposed to embracing. And this generation they're not going to put up with it. They're not going to put up with it. They're going to walk. And hopefully they'll walk with their faith intact, and continue to follow Jesus, because Jesus' example is the best there is. But that's why. That's why I feel like I got to take a few risks here, and I've got to say what I need to say and put these songs out, and just in hopes that it will encourage some different hearts, maybe that are ready to hear these types of things. But yeah, I mean, it's not an offensive record by any means. There's nothing like
of course.
blatantly awful on it. But when you sort of read and listen between the lines, you get what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, I mean, instantly, it's funny. You talk about the environment, you talk about religion and other religions, and instantly, in my head, it becomes political. So I go, well, if I embrace what if I embrace what the people, let's, for lack of better words, the environmental people are saying, or their beliefs, then does that mean I have to embrace their other beliefs on other issues and other things? And then we get into this fear that ends up making us sit on different sides of the table about conversations we haven't even had yet.
Right, and realistically, we talk about this table. There's not really even a table. No one's coming to the table because we're staying off in our little corners on these, and this is breeding cowards and loners. Yeah, and. But when we really, how can you hate someone that when you know someone, and they may think really differently to you, but if you can reach out and actually get to know someone, it's very hard to, you can't dehumanize them.
Right. You
can say, I don't agree with everything that, at all, if we're going to have these discussions, but I still love you and respect your humanity, and you have a right to walk this planet just like I do, and let me help you. Not let me hinder you, and condemn you. So
with that said, how do we overcome this culture of offense that we have? Because it seems that we get so, I don't even want to say offended, but someone else's beliefs that are so different than us. How do we live in this way, in a way of being less on edge and less offensive? Maybe it is just turning off our phones and starting to sit with each other more.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good place to start. And just realizing every human being on this planet is created in the image of God, fearfully, wonderfully made, Psalm 139 stuff, God knows them and loves them just as much as he knows us and loves us. But somehow we feel like, no, because I feel like I've aligned myself with his will and his ways, then he must love and approve of me a whole lot more than that person. But when you start seeing other people as beautiful, fearfully, wonderfully made creations that God loves, then it's very hard to hate them.
Yeah.
It's hard to hate. I can't hate someone. I can't hate someone that God created if I see them through that lens. I don't have to like and adhere to their behavior and sort of and whatnot, but
and you're not responsible for their
I'm
behavior.
Not responsible.
Like, that's the thing, that we're not responsible.
I'm not the Holy Spirit.
That's not our responsibility.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So I think, I really hope that things will sort of tone down a little bit in the next little while, and we'll be able to maybe have more conversations that are a little more civilized with people who don't agree, when we don't agree with one another. But initially, I think challenging ourselves to understand every human being walking this planet is a beautiful creation created by the Creator, and in order to honor our Creator, we have to care for His creation, and that means the planet, and that means these beautiful little people that are roaming around it, these 7 billion little ants. I'm one of them.
Yes, exactly. Well, before we talk a little bit more about the record, because time is just flying by here, as someone who's coming up to 10, my wife and I are coming up to 10 years married next week, and I think you've been married 25, or are you coming up to 25?
In 18 days we'll have our 25th wedding anniversary. Yeah, we'll be here in New Zealand.
No way.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I know.
So what is one thing your wife has taught you? Well, many things. The answer to say is everything. She's taught me everything.
Right.
But what's one thing she's taught you that has changed the way that Phil Joel gets up in the morning and lives his life?
One thing she's taught me that's changed the way I get up and live my life, that she's always right. No way.
She's in the background listening to you. I
Yeah,
guess.
she is. Yeah, look, she won't want me to do this, but look, there she is. Ta-da! Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
That's not what I taught him.
It's not what she's taught. Yeah. Gosh, I don't know. Well, I'll tell you this. Early on in our marriage, we came up with this rule. It was called the 100% rule. And it meant, and I think it became about when we started sort of shopping for furniture, and it might have started with a couch where, we walked into the furniture store and I'm like, look at that couch. That's the one, And she'd be like, I'm not sure about that. And because in that moment, of decision, I could definitely stay there and sort of try and talk her into it and just pile it on. But don't you understand? Can't you see this and all that, And so we came up with this idea, this rule. Like if I'm 100% in order to move forward, she has to be 100% in too. And these are definitely for things of consequence,
Yes.
Yeah. So if I don't like that, if she doesn't like that couch, I'm not going to stop and try and talk her into it, and then we end up buying it, and then later on she resents me because I talked her into it,
Right.
Yeah, so the 100% rule has been a really good one for us. It's like, and I know that, even in the church we have these, well, this is man's role and woman's role. I'm like, you know what, whatever. I want to know what you think, baby. I want you to be 100% in, because if you're not 100% in, then let's keep looking. Let's keep moving. Yeah. That served us really well.
Well, and it sounds like she was 100% in on you making this record, and the record's called Better Than I Found It.
Yes.
Did making this record take even just a little convincing on her part for you to want to just say, okay, I'm going to jump all in? Because starting a record, not finishing it, is a very depressing feeling.
Yeah. Well, no, she was all in. She pushed me out into the studio, really. She was like, get out there, record these songs. And at different points in the journey, I would struggle. And I'd be like, I don't exactly know what to do with this song. How do I capture it? And she'd come out and she'd say, hey, just calm down. Just make art.
Yeah.
Just make art. That's what you're called to do. And I'm like, okay. And so she'd go back inside and I'd be all calm down and I'd do that. Yeah, and I think making art as opposed to sort of coming up with some sort of agenda as to how to deliver a message. It's like, no, just make art. Make it as poetic as possible. Make it as beautiful as possible. And that's honoring the craft and honoring God, and just see where it goes from there. And so no, she's my backbone, man. She's it.
Man, I love hearing that. And like I said, I had a chance to listen to a few tracks off the record, Better Than I Found It. And it's out now. It's on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, YouTube if you're cheap. But you can go find it and listen to it and engage with it. And I want to just say I love the heart in which you're doing this record with. And please, if you can, on social media, why don't you go share something positive and uplifting today, like this record, and let people hear it.
Oh, thanks, Josh. That's kind, man. Well, hey, one last note. Did you get a chance to watch the music video for Sailing Speed?
I have not, but we will put a link for that in the in our show notes. We'll make sure we put a link for that as well.
I'll go
watch it.
My wife directed it, and my daughter edited it, and my son acted in it. You'll just have to figure out which actor my son is, and my dog starred in it.
Amazing. So it's like a true quarantine family adventure.
Absolutely, yes.
Amazing. Well, hey, I'm gonna let you pick the songs. We always close podcasts with a song.
Ooh.
What should it be? Sailing Speed? Is that the song we should close with?
Yeah, you could close with that, and then that'd be cool. And feel free to play any songs.
Give me a second one.
Maybe all.
Give me a second one. Second favorite.
Okay, well maybe All Right. I mean, All Right is the last song on there, but it'll definitely kind of encapsulates a lot of what we've just been talking about. So let's roll with that.
Killer. I love it. Well, this is right now is going to be Sailing Speed here by Phil Joel right here on Overflow Beyond the Music. Check it out.
Simple life, sailing speed, not so fast. Yeah, that's what I need. Feel like I know now. Feel like I'm beginning to slow down. Gonna take my time before it takes me. I'm gonna float downstream.
Thanks for checking out today's episode of Overflow Beyond the Music. For past episodes and more information about Overflow Ministries Group, visit overflowbtm.com.